Hi, my name's Tom Cosm, and today I want to talk to you about how I use call and response in my productions. Call and response is something I use in almost all of my tracks, and I think it's an often overlooked tool for getting your tracks to sound more whole and complete. As the name implies, call and response is about having two or more elements talk to each other, like they're having a conversation. You can think of it as tension and release, but instead we're asking questions and then answering them. As well as a tool to get your track sounding nice and complete, it's really good in the production or ideas phase as well. It gets a natural ebb and flow going, it gets things moving, it gets the motivation driving, the dopamine flowing, and that's really handy when you're grinding away doing some production stuff. So with a little bit of practice, just using this technique, you'll very quickly make it a natural part of your toolkit. The very first thing I want to do is lay down a beat. So let's get a drum rack onto a blank MIDI track. And I'm going to populate it with these 4 samples which I've pre-selected. We have a kick, a snare, a closed hat, and an open hat. Let's put a blank MIDI clip into the clip slot here by double clicking, and I'm going to put down a 4/4 kick pattern. Let's play the clip. Pretty simple. I'm going to put a closed hat on the offbeat. Now to me, this is the most basic call and response on a very micro foundation level. We have the kick and the closed hat doing the call and the responding, the kick being the caller and the hat being the responder, or the tension and the release. If I put a snare on the 2 and 4, they're a bit loud. Let me just select them both and use Alt to bring the velocity down. We now have a call and response on a 2-beat level, the kick and the snare. Let me remove this kick and this kick. You'll really be able to hear that relationship. Call, response, call, response. So we have a 2-beat call and response and a 1-beat call and response. And again, it's on a very small level, but this is the foundations for the track. So it's important to note. I can move the kick across a few 16th notes, get a broken beat. It doesn't have to be 4/4. And let's get a few more hats in here. I'm going to change the velocity with Alt just to get a bit of a human vibe. And we'll duplicate these with Control D a few times. Let's put a closed hat here and bring the velocity up. And you know what, I'm going to make this a drum and bass track, so I'm going to bring the tempo or the BPM up to 167. That sounds good. Now I have my drum beat. I'm going to get this into arrangement view. I'm going to select my clip, do Control X to cut it, hit Tab to go into arrangement view, and we'll paste it at bar 33. I'm going to drag it out so it's an 8-bar loop, so that's 33 to 41. We'll click on back to arrangement, and I'm going to do Control L to loop this area. So we have a nice 8-bar loop now. But I want to create some call and response on a slightly bigger scale. So I'm going to do this by introducing a crash cymbal at the start of the 8-bar phrase. I'm going to use this one here. I'm going to drag it into an audio track. We'll turn off warping and let's bring the volume down. So this is the response or the release, and it's at the very start of the phrase. Very good. Now we need a call or some tension. So I'll use this MIDI track. We'll call this noise. Let's go ahead and insert an operator synthesizer. I'll change the waveform to a noise white. We'll turn off the filter. I'll introduce an 8-bar MIDI clip by selecting 8 bars and pressing Control Shift M. And now I'm just going to put in a long 8-bar note. It doesn't matter what pitch we use because the white noise is unpitched. That will do. And let's bring the volume down because it'll be quite noisy. So there we go, we've just got straight white noise, but I need this to do something over time. I need it to build up. So I'm going to select the volume parameter in the operator synth, press A to go into automation mode, make sure my keyboard is turned off. And let's introduce 2 points here in the volume automation line. They're both at 18 decibels. And we'll add one more and bring it down to negative infinity. So the start of the loop is at negative infinity. The end is at 18. It'll slowly build up. But I will hold down Alt and give this a curve. So now if I start halfway between the bar or between the 8 bars and hit play, you'll hear the white noise building up. This is the call, the tension, and there's the release. So a very simple phrasing kind of progressive thing here, but now each time that 8-bar loop loops around, we're going to get a sense of moving forward. It's almost like it's telling a little story. So now I'm going to move on to creating a call and response style bassline. I'm going to create a new MIDI track and we'll call this sub, and I'm going to put in another operator synthesizer, and now I want to put in some notes. I'm going to select 4 bars, put in a blank MIDI clip, Control Shift M, and I'm going to write them in with my mouse. I'm going to do them 3 octaves higher when I'm working in the subs. I like to compose them 3 octaves higher because I can hear the difference between the pitches of the notes. When the notes are down low and they're just sine waves, G0, G sharp 0, I find it quite hard to distinguish the pitch sometimes. So let's just put in some notes up here. That looks good. We'll drag this one out. So it's very simple, but this is my call. It's light, it's fluffy, it's melodic, it's got movement. So for the response, which I'll be putting here at bar number 3, let's just put a nice long E. There's the call. And there's the response, but let's move this across a couple of 16th notes just to add a bit of variation. That sounds good. Now I'm ready to move all these down into the sub area. So I'm going to do Control A to select all and Shift down to move down them an octave. Move them down an octave. 1, 2, 3. That should be nice and low. Yeah. If you're on good speakers or headphones, you'll really be able to hear that. Okay, so I'm happy with the sub. Let's get some harmonics in the bass. So I'm going to select the track and duplicate it with Control D, and we will rename this to Bass 1. Now, first thing I'm going to do is group this into an audio group because I want to apply an EQ8 to get rid of all the subharmonics because the subs are already taken care of with the sub track. I want anything within this group track, which I'll name a bass group, to have no subs whatsoever so we don't get any muddiness. So I'll select the first pole of the EQ. We'll choose a high pass and we'll bring it up to around 100 Hertz. So anything now inside this bass group is going to have the sub completely cut. That means I can go into my bass track. We could change the oscillator to say a saw, and let's turn off the filter. Let's have a listen now. If I just solo this, you'll hear there's no low end. But if I solo this as well while holding down the control key, you can hear the sub is now taking over all that low end. Okay, so that's the call. For the response, I want it to be a different sound. Just for now, we will do some sound design shortly, but I'm going to, what am I going to do? I'm going to duplicate this bass track, Control D. We'll call this bass 2. I'm going to go halfway through my 4-bar clip, so 2 bars in, and I'm going to do Control E to split the clip. Now I can delete the first half of bass 2 and the second half of bass 1. So this is handling the call, and this is handling the response, and that means I can go into my bass 2, and we'll change the waveform just to a square, just to have something a little bit different. And let's just have a listen to that without solo on. Okay, that's sounding good. You'll hear we have the call, which is nice and kind of light and fluffy, and then we have the response, which is a bit more heavy. Okay, now I have the notes in. Let's work on the sound design. So on bass 1, I want this to be even lighter. I just want to have some harmonics. So what I'll do is I'll group this operator into an instrument rack like so, open up my chains, and I'm going to duplicate this chain, and we'll call this harmonics. I'm just going to solo it, and let's go back to our oscillator and we'll change it back to a sine wave. And I'm going to be using the oscillator mode on 16th increments so I can actually add harmonics myself. So at the moment we won't hear much, but I can add harmonics in here with the pencil tool. I'm going to just choose the 2nd, 4th, and 6th harmonics. Okay, that's good. What I'm actually going to do is duplicate this harmonics chain again so we have a separate one. And for this one, I'm going to have the 3rd, 5th, and 7th. So this one's handling the even, this one's handling the odd. And now I can hard pan one to the left and one to the right. And we should get a cool spatial harmonic sound. Awesome. Now I want an LFO on the volume of these two. So rather than using the LFO of both synthesizers, I am going to use an auto pan. I'm going to chuck it after the instrument rack. We'll bring the amount up. We'll change it to sync mode, so it's on 16th notes. We'll bring the phasing down. So this is just going to operate as a volume LFO now. Okay, that's good. Let's bring the saw back in. I don't want the auto pan to apply to the saw here. We should rename this to saw. So what I'll do is select these two harmonic chains. I'll group them into their own instrument rack within a rack. We'll call this harmonics. And now I can drag this auto pan onto that chain that contains the two harmonic operators. And make sure we are unsoloed. So now that saw is not being affected by the auto pan, but I do want to EQ this. So let's put an EQ over here and we'll make it a low pass, a high pass, sorry. Let's bring it right up so we just get the high end. Okay, that's it for the call. Now let's go ahead and work on the response. So we've got a simple square wave here. I'm going to use frequency modulated synthesis. We already have the algorithm selected. Let's just go over to our second oscillator and make sure that our sustain is up because we want this to modulate for the entirety of the note And let's bring the level up. So that's already quite screamy. Let's bring the coarse value up. We'll go for 8. Okay, let's roll with that. I'll turn on the filter. We'll bring the frequency down. And we'll give this an envelope. I'll give it 100% for now, and we'll give it some attack so it kind of opens up over time. Maybe around 500 milliseconds, that'll do. And let's do the same with the decay, but I'll change the curve so it's linear like the attack. That sounds good. Straight away, I feel like this could do with some space, so I'm going to add a hybrid reverb. We will bring the blend down to 100% convolution, just so we have the convolution. I'm actually happy with that for the space. It needs some distortion, so let's explore the distortion subcategory of the audio effect rack. Let's go for this one here. And let's explore some of the variations. I'm happy with that. I'm going to stick with the horn, but I want this to really scream. I want it to be quite feedback sounding. So I think the best way to do this is to use an echo or a delay, something with a feedback. I'm going to chuck it down here, and I'm going to be turning the feedback probably up beyond 100%. So as a safety measure, I'm going to put a limiter after it, just because it might get out of control and we don't want to hurt our ears. So this is on 8th notes at the moment. I'm going to turn off sync mode and bring the time down to really, really short. So the feedback is so quick, the echoes are so short. Let's bring the feedback up now. Let's make this a bit longer. I'm going to bring the filter envelope amount down a bit, just so it doesn't reach the top point. Let's give it a bit of resonance. Let's try ping pong, that should give it a spatial effect. Let's bring the spread up as well on the operator. And let's listen with the sub. Okay, let's listen with the drums. I'm going to bring the feedback down a bit, and let's make sure the release is completely off for the amplitude of that original oscillator. Okay, I'm also going to add a compressor to the bass group so we can sidechain both of those bass sounds from the kick. Let's open up the sidechain. We'll take the audio from the drum rack, which is where our kick is located, and then we select where we want it to come from in the drum rack. We'll choose kick pre-effects, bring the ratio up and bring this down. Okay, I'm happy with that for now. Now let's move on to the second half of the loop. Let's duplicate this across a few times. In fact, I'm going to call this bass call and bass response. I think I'm just going to use the same MIDI clip that we had for the original. I just did Control D there to duplicate it. Let's change this just a little bit so the notes have a variation. Maybe like this. Yep, and I'll copy this across up to the sub channel using the Control key. And let's duplicate this across. So this is the responding sound. I think I want a new responding sound here, so I'm going to create a new MIDI clip and we'll call this bass response 2. I think I want a nice wavetable morphing neuro sound, so I'll drag this MIDI clip down into the new bass response 2 track. And let's go ahead and introduce a wavetable. So here is a wavetable here. I'm just going to, what are we going to do? Let's make it just a saw wave for now. I'm going to solo it. Let's bring the release time down and bring the sustain up. And I want to morph the wavetable, but one trick I like to do is to group it into an instrument rack first and map the wave position to a macro and then automate the macro, because then I can go back into my mapping and specify the min and max values later. If I find that the automation that I've drawn is too intense or not enough, I can go ahead and do things to it here. So let's just straight away zoom in here with Z, and one more time. Make sure we're in automation mode with A, and now I can move this OSC1 position around. We don't have a very interesting wavetable yet, But let's just morph it around and do a few, I don't know what's gonna happen here, but just a few random things. We'll just go up and down like this. Okay, let's choose complex waveforms. Let's cycle through them a bit. Find something quite interesting. I quite like that. So you can see how this middle area of the wavetable is a little bit less harmonically rich. So I can go into my mapping now. I could bring the max value down, so it's just going to morph around these two areas. Let's give this some unison. We'll go just for a classic. And now let's change the modulation a little bit. Let's have a real fast one here. Maybe if we go up and then down like this. Cool, let's give it a phaser. I think that would sound pretty good on it. So I'm going to add this, where am I going to put this? I'll put it after the instrument rack. And I'll turn off the amount because I don't want to actually have it modulated by itself. I want to modulate the center frequency myself. So here's our modulation line. So let's just open this up and close it to start with. Let's make the notches 2 just so it's not as intense. 1, 2. It's not very loud, so I'm actually going to limit it. I could raise the volume, but these kind of sounds I like to push really, really hard. And let's change the filter frequency as well. Let's just have this open up and then come down. Let's listen to it with the drums. That's cool. And one more thing, I am going to give this some space, just like before with the hybrid reverb. So let's go and add that in. Bring the blend down, and let's just go for plates. We'll bring the decay down very short. Bring the size down as well. Awesome, so here's our call. Response 1. Here's our call again. Here's our response 2. So now we have an 8-bar loop. I'm going to now stretch this out and I'll add in some locator markers so we can get a bit of structure happening and see how the track's going to flow over time. So let me just close some of these down. We'll close down the bass grouping just so we can see everything as a whole. There we go. Now what I'm going to do is select everything here. I'm going to select it from the master track. I'm clicking and dragging. So I've got all of those 8 bars. I'm going to duplicate it. So that's 16. We'll do one more and one more. So now we have 32 bars. This entire area is 32 bars long. I'm going to start adding some locator points by right-clicking up here on my timeline. We'll go first bass. And here we'll go second phrase. We'll probably add some percussion in here. Next, I want to focus on this area over here, which is going to be the breakdown. So we'll just put these locator markers in as placeholders, breakdown. And then over here, we will have the drop. This is going to be the main drop, so we'll call it main drop. I will copy everything here, so all 32 bars. I'm going to copy with Control-C and paste them over at the main drop. And then we'll just put an outro at the end, like so. And then over here we have the intro. Now this is very basic, but I find a lot of people get really stuck working on a single loop. And if you force yourself to do this, at least you've got a basic foundation for what your track is going to be like. Okay, let's go ahead now and work on the second phrase. I'm going to introduce a bongo loop, and I have pre-selected one. So let's go ahead and just introduce a new audio track. I think it's a conga loop. We will find out. We'll go conga, and let's scroll down into our folder here. So I'm going to drag this into the second phrase area. Let's zoom in with the Z key. I can already see some of these transients aren't quite on the beat. So it's a little bit too sloppy. So I'm going to do Control-A to select everything and do Control-U. That'll snap all the transients to the beat. So that should be more in time now. And I'm going to select the forward mode for the warping algorithm. And let's bring this down. It'll make things a lot more snappy. sounding good. Let's move the playhead across. And we'll bring it to 1 beat across. Okay, that's sounding good. Let's also add an EQ8 in there so we can just get rid of the kind of low mid area. It's a bit clashy. Okay, I'm happy with that. I'm going to drag this out over all of the second phrase, and I'm also going to get rid of the crash cymbal here and here because I feel like that's going to be a bit excessive. All right, now let's do some more work after the drop, and we'll do some more call and response stuff. I'm going to create a 4-part call and response here at the main drop. It doesn't have to be 2 things, it can be 3 or 4 or 8, whatever you're feeling. And I'm going to be using synths and pads and chords all talking to each other. I'm going to pre-create the tracks and the MIDI clips just so I can see how everything will fit. And you'll see I've created 4 presets already. They're very basic, they're just placeholders for the sound design, which we'll get into shortly. So I'm just going to drag these in to the bottom of my project here underneath the bottom track, and that will create a new MIDI track for us with that preset. I'm going to drag call 2 under that, then response 1 under that, and response 2 under that. So there's our 4 individual presets all laid out for us. Now let's open these up and insert some MIDI clips. So I'm going to just play this from the main drop, bar 97. Okay, so there's our first call. It's going to go in here. That's 2 bars, and I'm going to press Control-Shift-M for a new MIDI clip. Now, response 1, which is going to respond to call 1, I'm going to put here. So again, Control-Shift-M. Then we're going to go up to call number 2 and response number 2. So you can see it goes bam, 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 call, response, call 2, response 2. Very good. Now let's get some notes in there. I'm going to borrow the notes from the bass call, and let's just copy that with Control-C, and I'll paste it directly over this clip that we have already created. And let's look at call 1. It's a very simple saw wave with a reverb for now. Let's listen. Okay, it's too low. Double click the clip. I'm going to select all the notes with Control-A, hold Shift and push up, and that will bring everything up an octave. That sounds good. Now for the response to that, I'm thinking a chord. We're in E minor, so I'm just going to put in a very simple E minor chord. You'll see that this response 1, we've just got a real simple wavetable with a reverb. Let's select all those and go shift down, so an octave down. Okay, I'm happy with that. Now let's borrow the bass line from the bass call for call number 2. So I've just copied that clip with Control-C, and we'll paste it again with Control-V. Let's have a listen to this. Let's go up an octave, Control-A, and then shift up. That sounds good, but these notes need to be longer. So while they're selected, if they're not selected, Control-A again to select them all. I'm going to click on legato, which will extend all the notes out towards the next one. I'm going to go back down an octave, Control-A and shift down. I'm happy with that. I'm hearing a bit of bass and subs come through those, so what I need to do is the same as we did on the bass, response and call tracks. Select all these, group them, and I'll call this main call response. Now I'm going to put an EQ8 on that channel or on that group so we can get rid of any subs. So here's my EQ8, and I'm going to turn that into a hard shelf and bring it up to around 100 Hertz. So this is no longer going to be playing any sub frequencies which will interfere. So that's call number 2. And here's response 2. Now this one I've got a wavetable. What am I going to do here? I'm going to put in another long chord. I'm going to copy the chord from response 1 and I'm going to paste it here in response 2. I'm going to bring these notes back so they start at the start. So I just push the left key twice. And now I'm going to click legato. So we have a big long chord. I'm going to solo that. Okay, I'm going to select all the notes, press shift down. A nice low chord. Let's select the clip and push Z to zoom in. And I'm going to go into here and let's just play with the filter frequency. I'm going to have it open and then come down. Maybe not that low. I think I've got LFO2 attached to the filter frequency as well. So let's have a listen as I bring the amount up. That's pretty good. I'm going to make it 16th notes. And let's just have that come up here. And let's also just quickly change the rate. We'll do an automation of the rate. So I'm going to go into my pencil tool, which is B, and let's just do a few fast ones. Or they're slower, but that's okay. Let's see how it sounds. And now that's all in place, let's go ahead and do a bit more sound design. Okay, I've just changed a few little things here and there, just tidying a few things up, a little housekeeping. I'll tell you what, I'm going to remove the hybrid reverb. We'll just turn it off. Let's open up the filter so it's just the saw. And I want to use something new in Live 11, so let's have a look at our effects. Spectral type. Let's use the spectral resonator. So this kind of takes over all the note values. So at the moment it's just going to play the same note. We can turn it to notes mode so we can choose the note, and we're in E, so let's go down to E. We can actually take the MIDI from the original audio track though, which is a pretty cool trick. So let's go MIDI. We'll take the MIDI from the track that we're on, which is call 1. So the spectral resonator is now resonating at the same MIDI notes that are getting fed into the synth. So let's bring the transpose down an octave. That's pretty cool. We can play with the decay. What if we bring all these notes down in pitch? So select all with Control A and Shift down. Okay, let's bring this up an octave, the transpose. I'm going to turn the filter off. What if we put unison up? Oh, that's cool. I think what we could use is a corpus as well, because a corpus also has the MIDI input. So I'm going to drag this down. And where are we here? Let's open up this area. MIDI from call 1. Turn on the frequency. Ooh, let's bring the decay down. We currently have a beam material. Let's bring the dry wet down a bit. Let's try a different material. We'll try tube. We'll try pipe. Okay, I can see this decay and this decay being a lot of fun, so I'm going to group these together into their own audio effect rack, and let's map decay 1 of the spectral resonator to macro 1, and we'll also do the same for the corpus. So now this knob should be quite a lot of fun. Yeah, let's roll with that. So I'm going to zoom in here, and I'm going to do some automation on this decay. I'm going to change the grid size by Control 2, and then let's use the pencil 2. So let's just open some of these up. That's pretty cool. Let's listen with the drums. Let's change this to a square, see how it sounds. I like the saw. I like the saw. You know what? Let's bring these chords back. They don't have to be here. You can move these around. They don't have to be perfectly in time. I'm going to change the wavetable of these chords a little bit too. Let's bring the frequency down, and we'll give that frequency an envelope 2. Envelope 2, we'll bring the decay down so it kind of has a nice snappy decay envelope. So let's go ahead and create an intro for the track. I want to have some real creepy sound in here. So I think below all of these synth tracks, I'm going to create a new MIDI track, and we'll call this creepy synth or creepy. What can we use here? I'm going to go into my live packs, and let's use VoiceBox, another cool addition in Live 11, a really nice vocal kind of sounding sample-based synthesizer thing. Let's just have a listen to some of these. Basic vocal effect track. We want the instruments. We want chromatic voices, basic voices. Oh no, let's go complex. Let's go for this one. It's quite white noisy. I'm going to drag it down. This will take a few seconds just because we're loading lots of high quality samples. Okay, now let's go ahead and throw down a MIDI clip here at the intro. We'll keep the scale in E minor. It's quite handy to see what notes we need to be doing. Let's just put in one long E. Let's change the grid size down. Oh, we'll just go legato. What happens if we bring this right down? Not bad. I'm going to try this one here. We'll drag this in just to replace it. I kind of like the nice low, earthy kind of vocal sound. That's cool. What if we give it another E up the octave? And we can do the per note pitch bending here. So let's go ahead and go to this tab to the note expression. And now we can actually do some interesting things just with this note. I mean, we can pitch just this one down. I'm holding down the Alt key to snap to the semitones. We could actually emulate the melody that we had before. I need to zoom in quite close. I'm not sure if this is going to work. So if I go into my pen tool here, we need to make sure we're snapped to the grid. So it's here. That's cool. And let's do one pitch bend coming up like this. Whoa. Whoa. I like that. Let's do it again over here. So I'm just going to duplicate that information across with Control D. Let's give this some space. A little trick I like to do is use an audio effect filter delay. And then I open up the bands and just have one on a very short time increment and one on another time increment. If you're in sync mode, make sure you're in time. We'll bring the dry wet down so we just have the left and the right delays, and this kind of spaces it out. Let's go for another hybrid reverb here. Let's choose halls, something big. Let's bring the volume up a bit. Okay, now we need some drums. Let's go ahead and create a new MIDI track. I want a ride cymbal, and rather than search for one, I'm just going to go into my drums and choose one of these drum kits. We'll choose the jazz one. Again, it will take a few seconds to load because we're loading heaps of high quality samples, but it's a really nice comprehensive kit. I kind of find when I load up these jazz kits just to put in a ride or maybe a crash, I usually end up adding in some more toms or some kind of other instruments because there's just such good samples. So I just want to ride. Let's scroll through and have a look. Turn on preview, yep. There's a ride. And let's just drag this loop down just so it's one bar. We'll adjust the length to 1. And let's just have a ride on every second beat. Okay, that'll do for now. I'm going to drag the drums across. Actually, we'll copy these. So I'm selecting these loops, selecting Control or pushing Control C to copy, and we'll paste them here. So the second half of the intro has some drums. And I'll tell you what, I'll get rid of the hi-hats here. Sounds good. I'm dragging that out, the loop across, just so we have the non-hi-hat loop across here. And we also should borrow some of this white noise. So I'm going to paste this white noise here so we have a bit of a build-up. And also, let's just get rid of the drums here so we have a bit of silence. The noise decided not to play. We'll try that again. And let's have this voice drop a lot right at the end. So what I'll do is I'll cut this with Control E, so we'll have our own separate loop here. And this one, I'm actually going to use the envelopes tab and use MIDI control pitch bend. So right at the end, let's just have a big pitch bend down. Let's see how that sounds. Okay, let's go ahead and build a breakdown. Now let's copy this across to the breakdown area, and I'll also copy across these drums. So we've got basically the same thing as the intro, but this is happening in the breakdown. Let's get one of these noises across, but I'm actually going to select the whole area and push Control J to consolidate. So now we have a big long clip. I can select this, go legato, so we have a big noise build up. We also need to adjust our volume envelope by pushing A into automation mode. So we need to drag this back. So now we have, what's this, a 32 bar build up of white noise, so that's all good. I feel like we need one more drum, and funnily enough, I've pre-selected a classic Amen break. So I'm going to drag this into an audio track here, and let's just have little snippets of it, like so. Ooh, I am going to do the transient trick and use the forward mode and bring this back. Let's just make it 1 bar long, and I'm going to duplicate this across, and again and again. Let's put an auto filter on there, but we'll make it a band pass just so it kind of creeps in. And we'll just automate the frequency over these. And then we'll have this coming down. And then we can just duplicate that by selecting it and pushing D. I will actually send this to a return track as well. We've already got a delay on return B, so let's send that across. And we'll do it just at the end. So I'm using the pencil tool, sending it to return track B. So hopefully that should just delay out a little bit. Let's bring the feedback up even more. Let's see how it sounds going down. And this one, let's drag it out. We'll bring the return down. Okay, we're kind of getting there. I think here I want a really prominent snare sound, so I'm also going to delete the MIDI clip here so we get rid of the vocals. We need to delete it from here. And the noise, we'll bring it back as well. Okay, let's insert a MIDI track. I'm just going to search my sample directory for a snare. Got heaps of snares here. I want something quite powerful. These are all kind of rims. That'll do for now. Drag that in, put it in the right place. And I'm also going to add a drum fill, which I have already got sorted. And we'll put that in here. This isn't warped correctly, so I'm just going to warp it, set the 111 point on the first transient. Let's drag this back so it's all nice 16th notes. We'll drag this across here. We'll also do the transient trick to make them snappy. Bring this back. And this, the last thing I want to do, I think, is this is a little bit too in your face. It's a bit too loud for a start. What happens if I turn on the filter, bring it down, and give it some envelope? Okay, I'm happy with that for the start of our track. I will finish this and polish it. It is bare bones at the moment, but I just wanted to show you how you can use call and response to get ideas down quickly, get some expression happening, some movement, have things moving around the place, because it's really important when you're working with a loop over and over that you don't get into the stagnant mindset, you don't get grumpy and start hating what you're doing. This is a really good way to just keep things nice and fresh. So a very valuable skill to have in your kit. Please do try it. Highly recommend it.